As we begin our 5th season, Marywood Athletics begins a new era. The new face of Marywood Athletics is going beyond the arch. Tonight, we're welcoming Marywood's newest Director of Athletics and Recreation to the program. Patrick Murphy is Marywood's first athletic director in 28 years. Murphy is succeeding the now retired Dr. Mary Jo Gunning. Murphy obtained his bachelor's and master's degrees from Marshall University, and he received a certificate program of advanced study from the Dolan School of Business at Fairfield University. Over his 25 years of experience, Murphy has several career highlights. He most recently served as Associate Athletics Director at Fairfield University. He posted 12 Division I NCAA tournament appearances while at Fairfield. Other career highlights include being named Tournament Manager and Assistant Tournament Director of the 2014 NCAA Division I Men's Ice Hockey Frozen Four at the Wells Fargo Center. Murphy also has worked in association with the Super Bowl Host Committee and USA Basketball. I sit down with Marywood's newest athletic director, next.
When I first saw Turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back to the show. I am pleased to be joined by Director of Athletics and Recreation, Patrick Murphy. Mr. Murphy, thank you very much for being on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. We always like to start our season, and we wanted this year to start our season with a new athletic director, obviously, so it's a big get for the show, so we're really happy to have you here. But I think we're going to start, we always on the show start with the same question. We always say, how did you find your way to Marywood? And for you, it's probably even more appropriate because after reading all, your lengthy resume, how did you, after all these years, find your way to Marywood University?
Well, I had been looking for a director of athletics position for probably the last couple of years. It's kind of the natural progression of how things work. Mm-hmm. And I knew you had a search earlier in the year, and it was a failed search, and it came to my attention that you had opened the search again, so I threw in my materials. And I got a call one day from the head of the search committee, Ross Novak, and we had a Skype interview, and then the next thing you knew, they invited me to campus, and I had a great interview here, or I thought it was a great interview. It lasted, I think we went on at 8:45 in the morning, and it lasted till 6:30 at night.
Wow.
So it was
extensive.
Yeah, it was extensive, but I was really impressed at that point with the people that were on the search committee, and they asked great questions the whole time, and they kept me on my toes, and it all worked out, and I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. We're happy you're here too. So,
Thanks.
What are your first impressions of Marywood? There's a lot of cliche answers, I feel like, and I just didn't know maybe if you had a different kind of a take on it, but what do you think, your first impressions?
My first impressions are the people. The people here are just wonderful. They're very competent. They're very hardworking, they're very enthusiastic, and they really love Marywood University. So when you have a core group of people like that, the rest kind of comes easy. Everything falls into place for you. So I couldn't be happier. The facilities here I think are very good, and I think we have everything in place that we could be a very good program here in our conference.
Now, do you have any ties to the area, or is this your first time in the area?
This is my first time in the area, yeah.
And any first impressions of the area as a whole?
Well, I've been here about a month, so
right. Still feeling it out.
Yeah, I'm still feeling it out. I found a good place for chicken wings, if that matters.
Okay.
But No, it's nice. It's very nice. I love the whole northern Pocono area,
Nice,
along
yeah.
I-84 there, like the Lake Wallenpaupack area
Sure,
is beautiful
sure.
and all that. So my first impressions are great. And, you know, I come here from Connecticut. It's only about a 2.5-hour drive to Connecticut. So everything's been perfect so far.
Well, we're known for our pizza.
Pizza, I heard that. What's it called? The Old
Old
Forge
Forge
pizza.
It's a square, and it's a little thing. I mean, I'll tell you something.
Okay.
I like it. I grew up with it. I love it. It's part of my life now.
Okay.
But if you talk to people from New York and New Jersey, you might get a different.
I was going to say, if you ask the Italians of New York whether they'd like
Yes.
Old Forge pizza, it could be a whole different.
It might be offensive to them,
It could
possibly.
be. It could
but
be.
we
You
have
don't
we
know.
have the up pies too, the round pies, and you got to order it as a tray. too.
Okay.
That's the thing. If you say pie, they'll know you're from out of town. But that's.
Well, I haven't had it yet.
Okay.
so
Well,
when I
there's
do-
plenty
when
of places. You can't miss one. One on every corner. So.
Well, when I do, I will call you. I'll tell
Okay.
you how it is.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, when you came to Marywood, in terms of athletics, was there any program within the athletic department in terms of sports that you thought was an area of strength, or was there anything you thought maybe needed to be improved? Have you gotten along that far yet, or?
You know, I didn't look at anything as any program really being stronger than another program. I think that we need to improve, but I'm going to be saying that in 20 years from now. We're always striving to improve. I mean, we could win 5 straight conference championships, and then I'll say, well, we only got to the second round of the NCAA tournament, so we got to go further and further. You know,
Yes.
We're always going to be striving to better the student-athlete experience, and we're always going to be striving to perform better on the field and the court.
What role has sports played in your life? I mean, even outside of obviously your professional life has been almost solely dedicated to sports, but then outside of that, how has it played a role in your life?
Oh, it played a great role in my life. It afforded me a scholarship to attend a school, Marywood University. I went there on a soccer scholarship, and you know, that was a Division I institution, and it was just awesome. You know, growing up, I started out, you know, playing baseball, and my father used to tell me he thought that was my best sport, but I really liked soccer, and I really liked basketball, but I wasn't good enough as a basketball player to play at the Division I level, but I was good enough as a soccer player to get a scholarship, so that's the road I went. And you know, it's like anything else. People ask me, you know, did you miss it, or when you first got out, did you miss it? You know, I can't say I did, but what I did miss was the relationships and the friends that you get. You know, they're your brothers after a while.
Right.
You know, so I did miss that, yeah. But I didn't miss the actual practices and the games, and,
Right.
you know, getting beat up every day. So no, I didn't miss that part of it.
That must be pretty, you know, cool still to be able to say you were a Division I athlete, though. That's not something a lot of people.
Well, that was a lot of moons ago too. You know, I guess I don't think about it much anymore. It was a long time ago. And when that part of my life ended, the next chapter had to start. So I don't really think about it very often.
Do you think it helps, though, your ability to understand the athletes now, the fact that you actually went through it and were part of the system, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it does. You know, I think I know what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I know how hard it is to have a balance in your life. You know, you're practicing a couple hours, then you're strength training for an hour and a half, and then you're trying to squeeze in 3 meals and study at the same point in time. So from that aspect, I do remember how difficult it was to balance those things. But I also felt that, and this is just my thought, but I think it kind of plays out that typically student athletes have better GPAs than the rest of the student body.
There's research to prove that, I believe.
Yeah, and the reasoning for that, in my opinion, is that, you know, you have to structure your time. So it's not like you have all this time where, you know, you can take a nap whenever you want, this or that. Next thing you know, you've lost track of the day. You have to really structure your time throughout the course of the day, and I think that helps people, you know, get disciplined to study.
It's interesting you say that because every athlete we have on here, we always ask, you find yourself being like, is it a burden or do you find yourself being more focused in season? And they all like unanimously always say like, I find myself being more focused in season.
Yeah.
Just because of what you said, I have to set like parameters for myself, and it's better with
And you
my
have to
time
follow
management. Yeah, and it's you need to be diligent on that, or you fall right behind.
Right.
So that's kind of what they talk about when they're on the show anyway. But
right.
would you take us through the aspect of like the struggle of being a student athlete? Like I think a lot of people say, maybe the struggle isn't exactly the right word, but I guess the burden to a degree, like the extra effort that it takes to both do well in the classroom and do well out of the classroom, like on the field.
Well, it's a lot of added extra time that's put into your day. When you're an athlete, you're practicing for a couple hours. You're probably in the training room for a half an hour to an hour beforehand, and then you're kind of cooling down after you're playing. So, it's a great burden of time. And one of the things that I found that's different between, say, the Division I level and the Division III level is be careful what you wish for, because at the Division I level, it can be like a job.
Yeah.
We're at the Division III level, you're there for all the right reasons. You're there because you want to participate, you love the sport, etc. At the Division I level, it's almost like you're going to work every day, the way, not the way you're treated, but just the way that it is, basically.
Well, lots of good stuff so far with Mr. Murphy, and we're going to have much more with him right after the break, so stick around.
When I first saw Turtle, my heart was full. Now anything but lonely.
We have this like deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
We discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
love.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Welcome back to the Season 5 premiere of Beyond the Arch as our conversation with Patrick Murphy continues. All right, so we left off talking about student athletes, and we talked a little bit about you, and now obviously we're going to finish up talking about you a little bit, but then we're going to also get into Marywood because we want to talk a little bit about Marywood Athletics too, because we're all Pacers here. So your resume was very impressive, just looking it over, if I may say so. Your biography, everything was very impressive. So some of the highlights, I mean, some of the big things stand out, like, part of it being on the Super Bowl there, with getting the volunteers for the Super Bowl, and, the Frozen Four is very impressive also, and USA Basketball, so many big things sticking out to me. So I guess if you want to take me through each of those are the things really that stood out to me.
Okay. Probably the thing I was most proud of was we got 12 NCAA regionals to come into Bridgeport, into our arena there, and we led the nation at one point in getting regionals. And I don't know if you know anything about Bridgeport, but it's not really a destination city.
Okay.
So to convince the NCAA to bring that many events, more than any place in the country, more than Minneapolis, more than Charlotte, more than Lexington, more than Chicago, to bring them to Bridgeport, I'm probably the most proud of that. But secondly, I really, really enjoyed my time working with Steve Hagwell and putting on the men's Frozen Four in Philadelphia in 2014. I will say that was probably the pinnacle of everything I've been involved with, just because it wasn't just putting on the ice hockey event. It's the equivalent of the Final Four in basketball.
Right.
But we're also putting on the Fan Fest and all of that. So we're hiring top name bands to play at this event. And you got 28,000 people coming out to it. And I didn't find it to be all that stressful because, unlike a regional where you're really worried about making your numbers, and what I mean by that is you're worried about the revenue, is because the revenue needs to offset your expenses, et cetera, et cetera. you know, you really have to sell a regional, and you're really kind of at the what's the word that I'm trying to use? But you're at the of the NCAA, because you don't know who they're going to place in your regional. So we were always lucky on a women's basketball side because we always got UConn. So by having UConn there, it was almost guaranteed that we'd have a decent sized crowd. But with like the Frozen Four, it's such a cult following, these hockey fans, it sold out early.
Really?
So we got 28,000 people there. Then all you have to really worry about is what kind of experience are you giving the fans, and what kind of experience are you giving the student athletes. So once you know that you're going to meet your revenue numbers and you can keep your expenses in check, you know, the big pressure for that is you know, it's not too bad. The Super Bowl was very interesting as well. I kind of tell people I had a non-sexy job with the Super Bowl because I was in charge of placing about 1,200 volunteers. And when I say placing volunteers, it was at places that you would never even think happens with the Super Bowl. So I'm placing them at the airports. I'm placing them at the train stations. I'm placing them at Super Bowl Boulevard, which is this huge festival that takes place the whole week leading up to the Super Bowl. So that was really interesting. But I was not in the stadium or near the stadium for the actual Super Bowl. I was kind of running around making sure everyone is where they're supposed to be. But it was fun.
Awesome. And then USA Basketball, what was that interested me too?
Yeah, USA Basketball, that was an event we did in Bridgeport. And I was working with the Webster Bank Arena on that. It was basically a prelim to the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro for the women's basketball. So we thought Bridgeport would be a great spot for it because the USA roster was full of all UConn graduates. So that would give us a built-in crowd for that.
Right.
But if I remember correctly, it was Team USA, Team Canada, Team Australia, and I think France was the 4 teams. And like I said, it was kind of like a warm-up right before the Olympic Games that were held in Rio de Janeiro. Yeah,
Pretty
a lot
cool.
of fun.
Yeah, really
a lot
cool
of fun.
stuff. So now, you mentioned it before, you touched on it a little bit, now switching over to Marywood stuff here. Is it at all difficult to transition from D1 to D3? I mean, no disrespect to D3 sports, but obviously, you know, you are going from maybe a little bit of the chaotic nature of a D1 sport to maybe the more laid-back nature of like a D3 sport environment.
I haven't found it to be that much different. Obviously, we don't have the revenue component, the pressure to bring in dollars from that standpoint. But, you know, what I find is the only real difference between Division I and Division III is probably just the physical capabilities of the student athlete. And your success isn't predicated on scholarship dollars. Here you can actually outwork people. Everyone's kind of on a level playing field, except for some schools may have better facilities than other schools. But you know, at the end of the day, whether it's Division I, Division II, or Division III, the goal really should be to give the student athlete the greatest collegiate experience that they can have. And if we can do that, and if our men's and women's athletes here at Marywood can leave here saying, you know what, I had a really good 4 years, then we've done our job, and that's really the most important thing.
So obviously there was the big conference shift last year. That was the big story of the year last year here in the athletics world. But we actually, you know, Marywood was fortunate enough to have early success.
Yep.
So what is your take on the conference shift? I mean, you're kind of coming in right after it, so it's kind of an interesting spot for you probably because you're on the tail end of this transitionary period and everything, and now we're kind of full steam ahead into this new conference. So what's your take on the Atlantic East and the move?
Well, I can't talk about the old conference because I didn't know the people there. I didn't see how that worked out. But everything that I've seen so far has been very positive. We have a great commissioner who's extremely enthusiastic, and she wants to grow the conference. We'd love to eventually get to an 8th member of the conference, and we have solid schools in this conference, and I think it's a real positive for Marywood University. I do.
Is it at all tough for you because you've been to so many NCAA tournaments? Is it all tough for you to have to deal with the idea that you're not going to be an automatic qualifier immediately for the NCAA tournaments?
It's not ideal, if that's what you're asking. Obviously, you want to be able to get the AQ, which is an automatic qualifier. You know, it's not as difficult for me, I think, as it would be for the student athlete or the coach that is really striving to garner that bid. So I think it really is more of a detriment to them. But you know what? If we have a good enough season, and let's say we're undefeated in something, I'd have a hard time thinking that the NCAA wouldn't look at us strongly for an at-large anyway. So,
So we only have time for one more actually here. So, obviously, our last athletic director, Dr. Gunning, was here for, I believe, 28 years.
Right.
I said your first athletic director in 28 years. So.
I think 30, isn't it? Is it 30 years?
She was here for, I mean, the website said first for 28 years. I think she was involved with the university for 30, and she's a friend of the, she used to come on the show all the time and help us out here, so we're very grateful to her as well. But, you know, how do you, well, what are your thoughts on her and her legacy, and, you know, how do you kind of pick up from that, and what changes, if any, do you want to make in your new, you know, kind of tenure in this new age of Marywood Athletics?
Well, huge shoes to fill. I mean, we're talking 30 years of experience. I mean, I think when she started, they had 5 sports here. Now we have 22 sports. And it's not as easy as just adding a sport. You got to worry about Title IX compliance and all that. So what she's been able to do here at Marywood University is just spectacular. And my job, the way I look at it, is to protect her legacy and try to make us a little bit better than what we are now. And I don't think I'll ever be able to fill her shoes, but all I can do is kind of supplement and do the best that I can do and try to move us forward. But I really applaud the fact, the 30-year career. I mean, you're not even 30. Think about it. So she was the athletic director here way before you were around.
That's correct.
Yeah, and she's been super with my transition here. You know, she really showed me the ins and outs of Marywood and all that, and I'll forever be grateful for that. And I got a nice little card from her again today. So, you know, what she did here is nothing short of miraculous, and all I want to do is just try to keep her legacy going and try to tweak a couple things maybe that may need tweaking, maybe nothing will need tweaking. I mean, I'll find it out over time. But yeah, my job, the way I look at it, is just try to get us a little bit better.
And is there one goal for this first semester?
Not as much for this first semester. You know, I kind of came in my interview process. I said I didn't want to be that person that just made changes to make changes, because I don't think that's healthy for anyone. And you run the risk of making a mistake because you don't have all the information at your hands that you need to make some decisions. You know, I would like to. I'd like to eventually probably upgrade our sports communication to do more social media and utilize the marketing department here at the university to push out our message as much as we can, because we got a heck of a story to tell. So let's tell it, you know. I'd like to get a corporate sponsorship program really up and moving in the right direction. I'd like to take the facilities that we currently have and dress them up, make them look a little nicer. But obviously some of this needs to be rolled up into a strategic plan. So we'll just see.
Sure. Well,
we'll just see. It all takes money.
Absolutely.
You know. So, and I want to do more of these things. I would love to do. I would love to do podcasts. I would love to do all that stuff. Yeah. Like I said, we got a great story to tell. Let's tell it.
We do some podcasts with our sister organization here in the MMG, the Woodward. They put up a bunch of podcasts. Actually, I used to do one on sports, and then one of our crew members here, Dave, does his own podcast actually too. So I agree with you. Podcasting is a way of the future, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I'd like to put the focus on the coaches, not necessarily myself. Let the coaches be on there and have, you know, let our basketball coach have a podcast and women's basketball or whatever. Yeah.
Well, we'd love to have you back on maybe the end of the semester to do a recap or
I would
something
love
like
to.
that.
I would love to. Thank you so
yes,
much.
well, thanks for coming on. That'd be awesome. And thank you for coming on and being our first guest on our Season 5 premiere.
I appreciate it.
And we can tell
Thank you.
we're going to tell you what you can expect on the next episode of Beyond the Arch right after this, so stick around.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self, and I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
I'd like to thank Mr. Murphy for coming on the show tonight and wish him well during his time here at Marywood. BTA is back for our 5th season. You can expect another season taking you inside the lives of some of Marywood's student athletes and coaches. Until next episode, head over and subscribe to TV-Marywood's official YouTube page to watch full episodes of the show. Be sure to follow TV-Marywood on Twitter and Instagram and like us on Facebook. Until next time, always remember to look past the jersey and beyond the arch. From everyone at TV-Marywood, have a great night.